Hello and welcome to section 3.1, representing decimals. You'll see that I put a page number on here, and this is just going to give you a better idea of what this chart looks like. I want you to go ahead and press pause and do a very neat job filling this in. Okay, just to explain the place value chart real quick, up at the top you'll have the numerical representation of each place value. So hundreds is 100. Tens is 10. Ones is 1. The decimal point represents the word and you'll hear that quite often as we go through this. Then I have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and 10,000ths. Okay, we're going to use this top portion when we do expanded form, and we'll do expanded form a little later on. The second row here is the word form. Let me move this over here. Is the word form. So when I write it in word form, that's what I'm looking for, is to use these words. And the bottom part is to use for standard form. Okay, so how I would say this is I would say 2, and this is separated by the and. So 2 and then I would say 6, because I don't pronounce the 0. So 2 and 6, and you finish it out by using this place value that's in the last place. You only say the word or the word form of the last place value. So 2 and 600ths. Now once again, you're going to be using this chart a lot, so make sure that you did please press pause and write all that information out. So we're going to write each decimal in word form, and if you remember, word form is using this expression. So like I said, you're separating. Now when I have a 0 out front, we never usually say 0 and. So what we can do, you can say 0 and, but you don't really need to. You're just going to say this number. And how do you say this number? You say it like you would in normal, if it were in front of the decimal. So 825, so we're going to write that. 825, and you're being very careful not to put any ands in here unless it represents a decimal. 825. Now, I've done that part, but the key here is to include the place value of that 5, that last number. So we're going to go back. It's 3 behind the place decimal point. So 1, 2, and 3, and that is thousandths. So it's going to be 825 thousandths. Okay, now with this second one, we're breaking it up. Here's the and the and's going to break it up into 2 parts. So the part before, I just write 16, and then I include my and, 16 and then I say the last part, 8, and then once again I'm including that place value, and that 8 is in the 1, 2 hundredths column. Okay, you'll notice that the THS at the back represents that number is behind the decimal point. Hundredths is behind the decimal point. So 16 and 8 hundredths. Okay, same thing for this one. Here's my and that's going to break it up. So I'm going to say the first part, 142. And say the part behind, 6. And one place behind the decimal point would be the tenths. So 142 and 6 tenths here. And once again, I have that THS. Okay? When you get done, you need to read it out loud. 825 thousandths. Does that sound correct? Do I have my and in the correct spot? And in this case, I didn't use an and because there was a 0. 16 and, so 16's in front, and 8 hundredths. 142 and 6 tenths. Okay, so that's word form. Standard form is the usual way of writing a number. Okay, so when they tell you to write something in standard form, they're going to give you the word form, and they're going to say write it using standard form. So if they gave you 16 and 8 hundredths, you would then write 16.08. expanded form's a sum of the products of each digit and its place values, and that's when we use this part of the chart, okay, for expanded form. So we're going to write each decimal in standard form and in expanded form. Okay, so we're doing both. So I have 2 and 500, so standard form here. And if you want to go back and use that place value chart, you're more than welcome to. So 2 and 500ths. Okay, so I'm going to come all the way back here, and I'm going to erase this. Okay, and it's 2 and 500. So I put my 2 in front, and 500ths is all the way out here. So here's the hundredth spot. That's where the 5 has to land. Okay, 500ths. But if I have a blank spot, what do you think I add? I add a 0. So it's 2.05. In expanded form, you take a little bit more work. You're taking each place value and you're multiplying it by each numerical representation, and then you're adding each one together. So for 2, I would take 2 times 1, because that's the place value it's in, put it in parentheses, plus, now I have 0, and it would be 0 times, the 0 is in the tenth spot, so 0.1 plus, and then I would take my 5 times, and that's 100, so 0.01. And that would be expanded form. So the first number represents the numbers here, okay? And the second number here represents the place value that each number is in, and that comes once again from this chart, okay? So 42 and 62 10,000ths. I'm sorry, 41 and 62 10,000ths. So it's being broken up here. Here's my and. So I put my decimal point there. 41, and I know how to write 41, so here's my 41. And 62 10,000ths. So here's 62. Now 10,000ths is what place that 2 has to be in. Okay? So I'm going to look back at my place value chart. 10,000ths is 1, 2, 3, 4 places behind. Oops, wrong way here. So this is to be in the 4 spot. So here's 3, which means in these 2 blank spots I'm going to add, you're right, zeros. So that's 41 and 62 10,000ths. Now my expanded form, once again, consists of each number multiplied by the place value. So I have 4, and this is a 10, so 4 times 10, and once again, this is all coming from that chart, plus 1, and that 1 is in the ones place column, so times 1, plus, now I have a 0 that's in the 10th spot, so times 0.1, and you can always use that chart, guys, make sure you're using the chart, plus, I have another 0, plus, or I'm sorry, not plus, times 0.01 plus 6 times 0.001 plus 2 times 0.0001. We'll move this here. Okay, so 3 zeros. So once again, the first number comes from the actual number in the sentence. The second comes from my place value. Okay, and now my last one here. Here's my and. So it's 11 and 3/10. And the tenths column is right behind the decimal point. So for my expanded form, I'm going to take my 1 and I'm going to multiply it by a 10 because it's in the tens column. Plus my next 1, and I'm going to multiply that by a 1 because it's in the ones column. Plus my 3, and I'm going to multiply that by the tenths.
We need to see Reed Davis and Meredith Holland in the office, please.
Because once again, that is in the tenths column. Okay? Always feel free, guys, to go back to these charts that we've made from before and use them. Use them on your quizzes, use them on your your homework. Okay, that's why we need to make sure they're written down. All right, make sure you come to class tomorrow with any questions that you may have. Have a good night.